5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here. We appreciate you being here. This is obviously very important to all of us and to all Americans. Ms. Olson, in your 2015 Taxpayer Advocate Report, you list the right to a fair and just tax system as a taxpayer right. You would agree to that, right?
Absolutely.
Do you agree that a fair and just tax system is one that ensures that the tax credits only go to those who are qualified to get them?
Absolutely. Taxpayers need to know that, everyone is paying the right amount of tax, and that would include not getting credits that they are not eligible for.
So it is inclusive in a fair and just
Absolutely.
tax system that tax rebates aren't going to people who shouldn't be getting them.
Absolutely.
Okay. In the report that we referenced earlier, you stated, or the report stated, that improper payments constitute 27% of the $65 billion that were handed out annually through the Earned Income Tax Credit. That amounts to $17.7 billion of improper payments. $17.7 billion of improper payments. How do filers obtain improper payments? How does that happen?
These improper payments come in when taxpayers fill out their tax return and claim the Earned Income Tax Credit. And the payments can occur overpayments can occur for many reasons. It can be that they are incorrectly stating their income. They can be claiming a child that they are not eligible to claim, because that's where most of the eligibility, that's the eligibility requirement, to have a qualifying child. The law is very complex, and it's easy to fall afoul. There are a percentage of those payments, although no one really knows, that are attributable just to out-and-out fraud, whether it's that there's a preparer involved saying, okay, here you claim somebody else's child, or a taxpayer decides that they're going to claim somebody else's child.
Okay. Well, let me ask you specifically. Is it possible, in your research, has it indicated that illegal immigrants have received some of these improper payments from the Earned Income Tax Credit?
It should not be possible, because if they're undocumented—
But does your research indicate that it has?
I do not see that as— the IRS does not see that as a major issue, because for the Earned Income Tax Credit—
Not as a major issue, but
No,
is it an issue?
I do not think it is, because for the Earned Income Tax Credit, you have to have a Social Security number and use that on the return. You cannot use an ID.
But we're not naive enough to believe that there aren't fraudulent Social Security numbers out there.
There are Social Security numbers that identity thieves are using, and if someone who's an undocumented person or an illegal immigrant, as you call it, files a return with someone else's Social Security number, that is identity theft.
I understand, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't know that we're necessarily going to agree on this, but I want to ask you: is it possible for an illegal immigrant who's given or granted protection or protected status, for an illegal immigrant who's granted protected status under President Obama's executive actions, can they obtain the Earned Income Tax Credit?
If they have a Social Security number under that program that's authorized for work—
Is it possible to get a Social Security number under that program?
I don't know the answer under that program, but if under that program they could get a Social Security number authorized for work, they could claim the Earned Income Credit under the law.
So the answer to my question, can an illegal immigrant who is granted protected status under President Obama's executive orders obtain the Earned Income Tax Credit? The answer is yes.
If they have a Social Security number authorized for work. That's the requirement. That's in the Earned Income Credit. You have to have a Social Security number authorized to work. Your spouse has to have a Social Security number authorized to work. And your child that you're using has to have a Social Security number authorized to work.
Okay. As I understand it, improper payments of the Earned Income Tax Credit have increased since 2005. They've increased from 2005 to the present day.
There may have been an increase. I thought it was fairly stable.
Is it possible that that increase can be attributed to illegal immigrants?
My personal opinion is not. That's my personal opinion.
Do any of the studies indicate and back up your personal opinion?
None of the IRS studies indicate that. I'm just telling you what the sources of of the error for the earned income credit, the majority of the errors are attributable to overstated income?
I understand, but I'm specifically interested in illegal immigrants who are getting this. And all I want to ask you, my final question, is the administration addressing, or the IRS, are you addressing this at all?
The IRS is certainly looking at undocumented persons who don't have Social Security numbers getting credits that they shouldn't be getting. They are certainly looking at that.
I would certainly hope so, because as we started out this conversation, a fair and just tax system would certainly involve that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman.